On this episode of Project Mariner Blueberry, we try to undo what many of the previous owners did to this car. Let's get in there. Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Mariner Blueberry. That's our 92 Mazda Miata. So this episode is all about resetting it, going back to square one, cleaning the slate, however you want to phrase it. Usually when you buy a car like this, a 30-year-old vehicle, it's gonna need some stuff not just fixed, but undone. So before I start fixing things, before I start addressing problems, something I always do when I get a project in the garage is undo any modifications or anything a previous owner did that's gonna impact my ability to fix the vehicle. What I'm referring to and common things you're gonna see when you're grabbing a vehicle and wanting to clean the slate, if you will, are gonna be just tons of excess electrical wiring from past audio systems, any other kind of electronics that were added to the vehicle aftermarket, and some wiring that's just hanging out and we don't need it anymore. Other things you're gonna see are any other kind of modifications like excess lights, auxiliary lights, fog lights, weird interior lights, things that we don't need to be functional with the vehicle and that might be detrimental to the overall health of the vehicle for its long run. So we're gonna take care of that stuff. In this episode also, we're gonna go ahead and baseline the vehicle in the sense that we're gonna address anything that can be fixed to make it run like it should. So we're gonna look for any cracked intake parts or any hoses, lines that are leaking or could leak. Let's get the car as an overall baseline before we start to address other issues. I think that's a really good starting point and a good way to get this project off the ground and heading in the right direction. So let's get in the garage and get some work done. First things first, let's clean up this engine bay so we're not getting completely nasty after every job we do, especially underneath where it's totally a mess. So I've decided to spare you guys hours and hours of me scrubbing the Miata. So engine bay looking way more acceptable now. Is it perfect? Not yet, but a lot of that grease and grime is gone, as you can see. It's always nice to work in a cleaner area so you're not getting totally disgusting every time you touch something. Good start there. Even clean the underside of the hood. It is looking pretty damn good. Underneath, you guys remember what it looked like. Probably because we just saw it a minute ago. But we are looking a lot better down here. So a lot of that grease is out of control. Looking back there, the transmission, everything else has been pretty much degreased. So quite an operation, guys, not gonna lie. But I think it's essential, especially when we have multiple oil leaks and we want to see where it's coming from. And who wants to drive a car that's all dirty on the undercarriage? Not me. So, looking good. And in case you guys were wondering what that entails, it takes a can of degreaser, another can of degreaser, another can of degreaser, another can of degreaser. I think you get the idea at this point. There's half a can. So there we go. 5.5 cans of degreaser. And multiple hours spread over a couple days to get where we're at now. Speaking of where we're at now, I have so many jobs to jump into in this car that are kind of prioritized. But the first thing I'm gonna do to make life a lot easier is there are a lot of modifications that I'm not planning to keep, a lot of aftermarket stuff. And this is a good thing to do up front, guys, if your car's in the same boat, because it's gonna give you peace of mind, especially when you're trying to eliminate wires or deciding, hey, do I need this wire before I cut it and the car won't work anymore or some system has failed. So things I'm gonna address, we've got this aftermarket alarm system right there. So we're gonna find out what its deal is, like where those wires go through, see what else I need to eliminate. That's a big deal. We have some other wires. Of course, we've got some weird horn stuff. You guys remember the weird horns down in here? You can see them right there. So we're gonna eliminate those. And that'll just make life a lot easier. Any excess stuff, anything that's aftermarket, just get those extra wires out of here. Shouldn't be too bad, famous last words. We also have, speaking of things to eliminate, we've got our home speaker system. So I pulled the driver's seat out of the Miata to get better access to the wiring and anything else. Plus I have to replace that broken seatbelt buckle. I don't know if I talked to you guys about that, but that buckle does not latch. So I need to replace that whole unit. Safety first, right? Got a little tip for you guys if you're trying to find where wires are coming through your firewall. Usually it's not a problem, but if you have a big glob of wires like this, it can be challenging. So if you focus back here, you're gonna see, can you guys see that really bright light back there? That's where our wires are coming through. What you do is you put a really bright flashlight behind the firewall in the engine bay, shine it through, and that's an easy way you can find where your wires are coming through. So just a little tip I wanted to share there. Well, lucky for me, I found the 2 wires, pulled them out, and this is not an immobilizer unit or anything, so that's always cool. So I'm gonna go back. There's a lot of wire work to do in this car, guys. I am not a fan of amateur wire weavers or these people that think they can get in here and add a ton of wiring and aftermarket stuff and don't really know what they're doing, because I'm not super good at it either. So I'm probably qualified more so than these folks, but yeah, stuff like this gets scary. But yep, car starts, just did a quick start just to make sure. So boom, one less thing, the aftermarket annoying security system is gone. So we couldn't just leave a hole in the firewall. As much as I do love the smell of exhaust being piped into the cockpit, I did have an old rubber grommet I placed in that slot, filled it with some black silicone RTV, and that'll provide an airtight seal, and it looks pretty OEM if I wasn't completely zoomed in. You zoom out here, looks pretty legit, matches the other grommets that are in the firewall, so sneaky stuff. All right, pulled the passenger seat so we can get access to these wires going to this awesome home theater surround sound system. And you can see all the wires here, but here's a little scary something. If you guys don't like wire nests, check this out. Barf! Yeah, mostly audio stuff for the most part, but boy, we've got to sort this out. I'm gonna do it all at once, screw it. If we're getting these speakers out of here, let's figure out these wires. Most of them are dumping into the trunk there, so. Maybe I've been out of the audio game for way too long, but are we using drywall screws now to secure speakers to doors? Huh. Guess I gotta get with the times. As we continue to de-wire the Miata, you start to trace all these cables. You can see I pulled the speaker out, but you can see all these cables tucked under here. We got a lot of work to still do on this car, so just patience is the name of the game, guys. Don't go yanking wires out because you have no idea what they might have teed into, and you can have all kinds of electrical gremlins show their face once you do that. So nice and easy, methodically work through the car, start it where it came from and go all the way to the source. Check it out, no wires everywhere. I'm a massive fan of this. Look, everything's cleaned up. Even took the radio out, all those extra wires. Driver's side, let me show you over there. Oh, we might as well stop by the trunk. Look at this. It is still gnarly as all heck back here, but it's not a wiring nightmare anymore. Coming around to the driver's side, you will remember we did have a lot of wiring over here. Now you're seeing all this off because they had a lot of wires running under that. I also pulled the speakers, so that's why those are missing. I do have the speaker caps I'm gonna put on, but look under the steering wheel. How much better does that look? Got most of the wiring out of there. Night and day difference. Let me show you guys what I pulled. Okay, so here's the leftovers. So the car did actually have a Viper alarm system. So that was in the car. Look at all the wiring associated with that. That's what the speaker was and all this other stuff. Most of the other wiring was simply audio related. So you can see this big old bird's nest. Look how much wiring is here. This is a weight reduction of at least 200 pounds, guys. That's a joke. That's probably not accurate. But over here we have our home theater surround sound speakers. We got our head unit here, and then we have our blah punked. Those look pretty new. So here we go. This is all weight, extra wiring removed from the car. So I'm in a very happy place right now, and it's a good baseline for our car, so when we start doing things to the car, start working on projects, we know what we're dealing with, and we're not digging through a nest of wires and wondering what the heck's connected to what. So awesome. This is a big plus, and hopefully you guys, when you're buying your Miatas, you're not having to deal with something like this. So at least that mission's accomplished. All right, time to do some house cleaning. Up underneath this front bumper, you can see the 2 fog lights I'm not wanting to keep. And behind that fog light, you can see those 2 horns sticking down. Those are aftermarket horns, part of the alarm system. So we're gonna go ahead and pull all that out. No need for that stuff anymore. Here we have that old horn setup and the 2 fog lights that we are not keeping on the car, and that has really cleaned up the front end. So we're gonna get a little benefit of cooling up front, a lot more radiator access there. So that is nice. It is a cleaner look too, so We still have some items to address under the hood of this Miata. One of them being this little crossover tube here that has a broken section right here. So of course I sourced the used OEM one in good condition. We'll be replacing that. But the bigger issue is all these hoses. You can see this air breather hose is cracked. The radiator hoses are equally old and worn. So this is a great time, guys. Some of it isn't preventative. This is obviously something that needs to be repaired. But where they're not leaking, this is considered preventative maintenance to get the issue before it becomes a real issue. So I went with a silicone hose kit to replace these rubber ones. And what you're looking for is a good quality kit where the hoses are gonna fit. So look at that. It's perfectly curved, just like the original one. So you won't have any issues with fitment, and that's a big deal when you're doing hoses. You don't want any kinks or like overstretched or, you know, where it's gonna cause a wear down. And you wanna look and make sure that the silicone hoses you're buying are high quality. You can see all the stitching, all the layers in here, and that's a great sign. There is some cheap, no-name silicone hose replacement kits out there, and you do not want those. They are super flimsy, they will wear out, but I do find that a good quality kit, you don't have to buy like the most expensive, but a good quality kit does amazing work. They last a very long time if taken care of and used correctly. So it's a huge upgrade to your car for usability, reliability, all that fun stuff. So that's one thing we're gonna be doing. We're gonna replace just about every hose, whether it be an air hose or coolant line under the hood of this vehicle. Another thing I wanna show you, but this car's been run without its heat shield for a while, and I know a lot of folks do that, especially if you have aftermarket headers. But an issue with that is with the stock air box, the air source goes down here very close. There's a very small gap right here between the plastic and the header. The plastic has become brittle and broken, so there's a hole right here, which is not ideal for anything drawing air. That means we are pulling air right off these hot headers, so we have a very hot intake right now. So what I'm gonna do is, we'll take this out, we'll take a look and see what's going on. Maybe replace this section if I can source a one in good shape. But those are the little things you're gonna be looking for, okay guys? That's gonna cause performance issues. I think that's what we're gonna start out first, is unbolting this air box. And we actually have the stock heat shield I wanna put back in too. All nice and broken. I can put my thumb, I can feel it. It's like really easy to break, so yeah, we might just replace this part. Another very Miata issue is the broken oil dipstick. Cool, at least I can pull that one out with my fingers. Not to worry, we've got a nice new one to install in its place. It's all about the little things, right? All right, I've got that new crossover tube for the valve cover in place and a new hose where that was cracked before off that breather hose. So you can see nice hose right into a brilliant looking crossover tube there, back down to another fresh hose. And that's the way you gotta do it. You don't want any of these to crack, have a horrible vacuum leak, or any of your coolant lines, radiator hoses to break and have a catastrophe where you lose all your coolant and overheat. So it's important to do this, especially if you're getting a higher mileage car. But let's face it, any Miata you're buying nowadays, it is gonna be probably a high mileage car unless you're super lucky and find some amazing barn find. Who knows, right? But anyway, look how that looks, came out good. Yes, I'm missing this little valve cover bolt here. That'll be in the mail shortly, should be here. So yeah, that's looking real good. Yeah, that flange was broken before, so now we'll be able to bolt it up correctly. And fresh hoses all around. This is a time-consuming activity for sure. Some of these hoses aren't super accessible, but man, for peace of mind, you cannot beat this operation, guys. And we just wrapped up replacing all our hoses and lines for a very solid peace of mind under the hood of the Miata now. So you can see a lot of these new, brand new, shiny silicone lines. Looking real good here. So I'm pretty excited about that. It looks great, but that's not even the big part. Obviously the big part is everything's fresh, even these hoses back here. That tend to be a pain in the butt if they go. All new, lower radiator hoses you can see down there also. Very nice. Everything coming off the car is now Really nice, brand new lines everywhere. So some of them are a little harder than others to get to, but what a big upgrade. Here's our fresh used one that's in great condition. Now it's time to drop in our air intake.